Good evening, I'm Prasad Michael and you're watching Kini News, the show that brings you today's biggest stories. Today, Amanah's Khalid Samad shed some light on Anwar Ibrahim's elusive list of backers. Who are they, especially from Umno? According to Khalid, that list is with Zahid Hamidi. The names of 30 Umno lawmakers were presented by Umno President Ahmad Zahid Hamidi to opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim to allow him to form a new government, according to Amanah Communications Director Khalid Samad. Khalid claimed that Zahid had communicated that the 30 MPs have pledged their support for Anwar.
Satu surat saya difahamkan daripada Zahid Hamidi yang menyatakan bahawa 30 lah kalau tak silap saya ahli Parlimen UMNO yang menyokong Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim. Ya, dan dikemukakan setakat itu saja. Dan untuk nak dapatkan nama-nama dan saya difahamkan yang Zahid Hamidi punya ada senarai namanya. Selepas itu maka yang di-Pertuan Agong memang seperti mana yang dinyatakan dijadualkan untuk bertemu dengan ketua-ketua parti ini. Dan bila jumpa ketua-ketua parti ini maka akan berlakulah dengan siasatan yang lebih perinci itu, lebih terperinci itu.
The claim by the Shah Alam MP cannot be independently verified at the time of reporting. Malaysia Kini has reached out to both Zahid and Anwar's offices for comments. Meanwhile, in the interview with Jom Channel on Facebook, Khalid also claimed that because there were a large number of MPs willing to back Anwar, Harapan could choose which UMNO MPs to work with.
Adakah kerjasama UMNO PH akan buat DAP keluar PH? Setakat ini kita difahamkan kerjasama ini bukan atas nama UMNO, tetapi atas nama sokongan ahli parlimen secara individu. Dan tanpa adanya apa-apa syarat. Maka bila dikatakan tanpa adanya syarat, bererti kita boleh ambil yang mana yang kita nak, yang kita perlukan, dan kita boleh tolak yang mana yang kita rasa akan membebankan. Sebagai contohlah Zahid, Najib. Kalau dikatakan ada 30 ahli UMNO yang sokong tanpa syarat, maka kita boleh tolaklah Zahid dengan Najib dengan sesiapa lagi yang kita rasa yang akan merosakkan imej kita.
It appears Anwar Ibrahim's national tour continues. After visiting Istana Negara earlier this week, he will be at Bukit Aman tomorrow.
Police have so far received a total of 113 reports over a purported list of 121 MPs backing PKR President Anwar Ibrahim to become Prime Minister. This is according to a statement by Criminal Investigation Department Director Huzair Mohamad. He said, "The police are still conducting an investigation over the claim, which had gone viral on social media, and had summoned Anwar to the Bukit Aman Federal Police Headquarters tomorrow to give his statement." According to the police commissioner, the investigation is being carried out under Section 505B of the Penal Code and Section 233 of the Communications and Multimedia Act 1998. Huzair also urged the public to refrain from making or distributing any statement that can disturb peace and harmony. Anwar had announced late last month that he had secured enough numbers in the Dewan Rakyat to form a new government. He had an audience with the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, Sultan Abdullah Sultan Ahmad Shah, at Istana Negara on Tuesday to provide documentation to support his claim. Prior to his audience with the king, a list of lawmakers allegedly in support of the Port Dickson MP had started circulating online. However, several MPs whose names were on the list have since denied that they were part of the group and had lodged police reports.
UMNO may be discussing whether to withdraw its support for PN, but according to Anwar Musa, that's not why he visited the Prime Minister this evening. Rumours of a political development at Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin's private residence in Kuala Lumpur turned out to be a mere visit by a neighbour. Malaysia Kini and KiniTV reporters stationed outside of Muhyiddin's residence managed to interview Barisan National Secretary General Anwar Musa, who was seen leaving the house.
Maaf, kalau boleh nak tanya perjumpaan berkenaan apa tu Tan Sri hari ni? Berjumpa dengan Perdana Menteri tu apa ini Tan Sri?
Tak ada, perjumpaan biasa.
Oh, ada apa-apa?
Kita kan jiran.
Ada apa-apa keputusan ke yang dibuat berkenaan dengan musyawarah politik? Tak ada apa lagi lah. Oh, ada siapa lagi dekat dalam Tan Sri? So Tan Sri saja ke macam mana?
Saya je.
Tan Sri sajalah. Oh, okey. Perdana Menteri sihat ke Tan Sri?
Alhamdulillah.
Sihat jugalah.
Very sihat.
Oh, okay.
Earlier today, Anwar said UMNO had already started discussing the decision made by the party's political bureau to consider withdrawing from Perikatan Nasional since Tuesday. He also said he was confident that the matter will be discussed during the UMNO Supreme Council meeting, which is expected to be held at any time. On Tuesday, UMNO Secretary General Ahmad Mazlan made a shocking announcement that UMNO was considering to withdraw its support for PN. Malaysia continues to report a high number of new COVID-19 cases, with active cases at 5,945.
Malaysia recorded 589 new cases of COVID-19 as of noon today, taking the total confirmed cases in the country to 18,129. Out of the 589 new cases today, 586 were local transmission. There were also 3 imported cases, 2 from Indonesia and 1 from Ukraine. For the local cases, Sabah continues to report the highest number, with 304 new infections. This was followed by Selangor, which reported an increase in cases with 150. Perak has 52 new cases, and Kedah reported 31 cases. Health Ministry Director General Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah said that the number of COVID-19 patients requiring intensive care is now at 103, of which 31 require ventilator support. 3 new deaths were also recorded in Sabah, bringing the COVID-19 death toll to 170. Meanwhile, Senior Minister Ismail Sabri Yaakob announced today that the Federal Territory of Labuan will be placed under a conditional movement control order from October 17th to October 30th. Ismail said the move was based on advice from the Health Ministry and the National Security Council after an increase of positive COVID-19 cases on the island.
The woman who caused the shocking accident, which killed a Navy officer in Johor Bahru, has been sentenced to jail and a fine.
The Magistrate Court in Johor Bahru has sentenced a 23-year-old woman driver to 6 years in prison and fined her 8,000 ringgit for driving under the influence and causing an accident which led to the death of a Royal Malaysian Navy personnel. Magistrate Suhaila Shafiuddin made the decision after Nur Fatin Nazrah Suhaimi pleaded guilty to the charges. Nur Fatin was also fined 3,300 ringgit for another 3 offences, which are for not having a valid driving licence, driving a vehicle without a road tax, and without insurance. She was also barred from driving for 5 years for all 4 offences. Police had arrested Nur Fatin after an accident involving 3 cars last Saturday along Jalan Johor Bahru, Kota Tinggi. She was found to be positive for drugs. A video of the accident has since gone viral on social media. In the video, Nur Fatin, who was driving a Myvi, can be seen speeding and crashing into a Honda Accord which had stopped at a traffic light. The driver of the Accord, a 31-year-old Navy officer, sustained severe injuries and died at the scene.
Coming up next, Thailand has banned protests. Thailand's government banned protests and the publication of sensitive news on Thursday.
Thousands of Thai anti-government protesters overtook Bangkok's Democracy Monument on Wednesday in a symbolic move in their fight for democracy. Earlier in the day, they had faced off against supporters of the monarchy as political tension boiled over after 3 months of demonstrations. Pro-democracy protesters repeated their calls for the departure of the Prime Minister and former junta leader Prayut Chan-o-cha, as well as a new constitution. Thousands also marched towards Government House as crowds raised their trademark 3-finger salute. Some protesters had travelled all the way from the city of Chiang Mai in the north.
There is no equality in our country. The economy is down. We want to do something to ensure our future survival. There's no future for us now. We can't even do business.
Just a few dozen meters away, hundreds of royalists assembled too, dressed in yellow along with members of the security forces. There was a brief fistfight reviving fears of trouble in a country that suffered a decade of street violence before the 2014 coup. However, throughout the day, the two sides managed to largely keep apart. Leading his group of royalist supporters, Buddha Isara said protesters could demand democracy, but must not call for the reform of the monarchy.
It's their right to call for a democracy, dissolve the parliament, or ask the Prime Minister to step down. But they must not touch the institution.
On Tuesday, protesters had made a rare direct challenge to the king, chanting at his passing convoy after 21 activists were arrested during scuffles with police. The protests have become the greatest challenge in years to the ruling establishment. Among protesters' demands are curbs on the constitutional powers of the king, calling for him to transfer back the personal control he took of some army units, as well as a palace fortune valued in the tens of billions of dollars. In response to the protest, the government announced an emergency decree on Thursday to ban gatherings of more than 5 people. Publishing news or online information that could create fear or affect national security was also forbidden. The government said it was necessary to introduce an urgent measure to end this situation effectively and promptly to maintain peace and order. Other reasons for the emergency measures were damage to the economy from protests and the risk of spreading the novel coronavirus.
All across the continent, Europe is facing a nightmare scenario, battling a resurgence of COVID-19 before the start of winter.
France imposed curfews, while other European nations are closing schools, cancelling surgeries, and enlisting student medics as overwhelmed authorities face the resurgence of COVID-19 cases. With new cases hitting about 100,000 daily, Europe has by a wide margin overtaken the United States, where more than 51,000 COVID-19 infections are reported on average every day. Most European governments eased lockdowns over the summer to start reviving economies already battered by the first wave of the coronavirus pandemic. But the return of normal activity, from packed restaurants to new university terms, fueled a sharp spike in cases all over the continent. Now, precautionary measures are being reinstated across Europe as hospital beds fill up quickly. In the Czech Republic, hospitalizations this time are 6 times the peak seen during the first wave. With Europe's worst rate per capita, it has shifted schools to distance learning and plans to call up thousands of medical students. Hospitals are cutting non-urgent medical procedures to free up beds. A hospital director outside of Prague said he had concerns for his staff as well.
I am worried about the personnel, mainly nurses. It is not just about numbers, but about the physical and psychological stress, because working with using the protective aids is very demanding. Breathing becomes difficult. It's hot. Manual skillfulness is limited when using 2 pairs of gloves.
Other measures in Europe to contain the virus include shutting down bars and pubs. In cities like Barcelona, restaurants are being ordered to stop sit-down dining for 15 days, starting from Thursday. Europe is now responsible for about 1/3 of all global new cases, forcing leaders to take new actions.
I think we are much better here than on buses and trains and everywhere. Now, I don't think the restaurant industry is the one to blame, honestly, because we respect the 2-meter distance. I believe that this will be the end for us. The restaurant industry was already bad, but with this, it will be total chaos.
As cases in France climb rapidly, President Emmanuel Macron announced night curfews for 4 weeks from Saturday in Paris and other major cities, affecting almost 1/3 of the country's 67 million people. But the resurgent virus isn't limited to Europe. 22 American states set records for increases in new cases so far this month. And in Australia, one of the most successful countries to combat the virus, clusters have emerged in that country's 2 most populous states.
And that is all from me today. For more stories, you can go to KiniTV.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube and Facebook for the latest news updates. I'll be back with more tomorrow, same time, same place. I'm Prasad Michael. Thank you for watching.